Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome along to our conversation this afternoon about scaling a business into Europe specifically. My name's John Nolan. I look after Seven Senders in the UK. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we do. I would start by saying this is not a sales presentation, although it might maybe sometimes feel a little bit like that. But in the context of what I'm going to sort of tell you, I'm going to also talk about what Seven Senders does as a business. So this is what we do. We are a logistics business, so we're not necessarily just a software business. So we collect, we do the middle mile, and then we have over 100 final mile partners in Europe to do the final mile. So typically the main carriers that you could think of off the top of your head, the DHLs, UPSs, FedExes of this world, they're all partners of ours. And essentially what we do is we allow the customer or the final recipient to be able to choose the sort of local hero in their own market. So if, for argument's sake, a customer would like to use PostNL or DHL in the Netherlands, then they can choose between those, and likewise if they want to use DPD or Hermes in Germany, they can choose them. So as I said, we have the option to be able to allow our customers to choose their final provider of choice. We also have a custom solution for moving goods out of the UK, which sits on top of our platform, all tech-led, which again also helps us speed shipments through to the European Union. So what's our view on the current market situation? Before we start that, I'll sort of bring you back a couple of years if I can. So in 2021, the main challenges were how we could control inbound stock, keeping COVID out of the warehouses, and finding high delivery performance suppliers. So what we found, because we all know the volume surged, some of the carriers struggled with that, either through capacity or delivery performance. But they were the main challenges in 21. If we roll forward a year, what seems to be more of the challenges now is controlling the inbound supply chain, so making sure that we've got enough product coming into our warehouses to be able to fulfill customer orders, creating demand in order to make those orders happen almost. So we know about cost of living crises and things that are driving sort of consumer spend down, and also finding the right balance between NPS and cost. What a number of our clients come to us with currently is about how they can save money or what they can do to reduce their overall logistics spend. That seems to be the main driver that we currently see, certainly in the first 6 months of this year. So the numbers don't lie, as this slide sort of tells you. What we've sort of seen in sort of site visits to consumer websites, 21 versus 22, and that's continued into this year. Again, I won't labour the point too much because I think everyone in the audience probably knows this information, but we've seen a downturn in consumer spend versus what we were seeing across the COVID pandemic. What does that do with the carriers? So in essence, during COVID, all the carriers scaled up. We've got lots of capacity in the carrier networks, but sort of it's met with sort of maybe slightly decreased consumer spend, so there's less parcels going through those networks, which essentially for a number of people actually allows us to be able to perhaps negotiate better rates, because all the carriers are currently looking for volume, including ourselves. So what's left of the crisis, and what do we see in terms of demand? Again, this is a sort of a graph that shows where the consumer line should track. You can see where it sort of spikes upwards across the COVID period, but you can just see that dotted line, which almost shows that demand has sort of come back to where it was expected to be sort of pre-COVID times. So although it's down on what we've seen in the previous 2 years, probably if you were looking at these numbers in sort of 2016, 2017, you'd probably see where we are now as actually where we are now. Sorry about this graphic, it was sort of taken from a Goldman Sachs report. But again, this sort of shows you about some of the bigger players in the market. And now we know Next are currently doing pretty well, but we know some of the others that are on this list perhaps have seen a sort of restricted demand over the last year, 18 months, and have had to go into cost-cutting measures in order to maintain their numbers for their shareholders. So again, it sort of shows that perhaps the demand won't quite reach the levels that we thought that it might do maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So shipping as a sales argument, how does that work? Again, as I maybe said at the start of this presentation, different customers in different markets want different things. You can see there that an out-of-home delivery perhaps is more important in certain territories. A delivery to home perhaps in the UK is still the preferred choice, whereas sustainability or other arguments might be used in other geographies. So again, depending on who the stronger partners are in those particular territories relating to what customers want, that's who we would partner with. And the retailers particularly would say, you know, rather than having, for argument's sake, one delivery partner across all of Europe, or maybe several, because generally you don't want to keep all your eggs in one basket. What we do is we will have one API, one customer services team, one account management team. So you haven't got sort of 5 or 6 integrations and 5 or 6 invoices or 5 or 6 sets of account management that you need to deal with. So that's a little bit about consumer preference. Multi-carrier strategy, and this is based on conversations I've had with about 24 retailers, again in this sort of first 6 months. Being honest about it, the main topic of conversation is driven around cost and around driving cost downwards or looking for savings where they can. That's obviously become a key part, and that's obviously what we've had to focus on as well, because obviously we want to make sure we help our clients as much as we can. But as I say, they're in the final line, there doesn't have to be a trade-off. So this is the traditional sort of cross-border model at the top there, maybe from a few years ago now, where maybe one of the global integrators would collect your parcels, they collect in a fixed time window, it then goes into a domestic hub for sortation into the international lanes, it then goes to an international parcel sorting centre, then out of there then to the actual delivery country that it needs to go to, another sortation before it then hits the road to be delivered to the final customer. If you've got bigger volumes, there is something obviously called directional trunking, where you can send lorries directly from the UK directly to the delivery geography, and we've seen that as well, where larger of our customers will just ship straight through to, as I say, the delivery territory, and again that's the model that sort of shows that at the bottom there. However, it doesn't have to be like that, and again, it's not just Seven Senders that necessarily do this. There's others out there in the market that also do this, where you can send goods in different containers. They don't necessarily all have to be sorted into the same shipping lane, and they can still go directly to the point of delivery without having to incur extra time. And what we've seen with customs now as well is that we've opened sortation hubs now across Europe in order to separate those out. So you can give a sort of mixed product now rather than it all being sorted directly into single-use pallets. So what happens with customs and Brexit, I guess in particular? One of the things we had to change quite quickly for us was to ensure that we had a customs solution that worked, and I'm pleased to say that we have. So we take the detail from your warehouse around the HS codes, we do everything electronically in the background, and then you get one price, so you get a delivery duty paid price at the checkout. Clearly what that assists is the delivery time to ensure the goods get to your customers in Europe as quickly as possible. What we've also seen, actually certainly the first half of this year, where a number of clients have moved a warehouse to Europe or put it through a 3PL in Europe, we've now seen some of those clients actually bring the management of that back to the UK, because we know that when Brexit landed, it landed pretty hard, and there was a lot of confusion, certainly around the borders. But as customs solutions have grown and have become easier and become more streamlined, companies are seeing the viability of bringing goods back into the UK again, rather than having separate warehouses in Europe. As I say, slightly anecdotal, because if you're big enough and it suits you to have that operation, then clearly you still will have, but we have seen some clients do that this year. Here's an example, I guess, of one of our customers, ASICS. You'll be aware who they are, the footwear, sportswear retailer. And this is just a little bit of an example of how different streams can work from one warehouse. So into Europe, they can ship on pallets through a customs solution, 1 to 2 days generally for Western Europe, maybe sort of getting to 2 to 3 days for Eastern Europe. And that's one solution to go. Because of the double customs with Switzerland, we do a slightly different operation for that. And we know that there's going to be changes in how the Swiss do their customs come the new year. It looks like they will stop charging duty for all of their goods coming in, which again, as I say, is an interesting development, because they make millions and millions of Swiss francs from that. So why they're doing it is a question for them, I guess. But again, we'll sort of change. We still have to do all the paperwork. You just won't pay the duty when it lands. And again, so for France as well, it's a particularly strong market for ASICS. And they send that product loose load. So again, this could all go on one trailer, so it doesn't all have to be segregated. I think that's the wider point I'm trying to make. But for their bigger volumes, like France, it can be loose loaded on the headboard of the trailer. Pallets for maybe the smaller countries, and a pallet for their Swiss business, which could all be taken and separated by us at one of our hubs. But as I said, as far as the warehouse is concerned, it's an easier operation. They don't have to load 3 different vehicles, or there's always an argument around space, certainly in warehouses, where you have to put things into different containers before they're sent, and this way it just all goes on one truck. Out of home has become very important, obviously, certainly over the last sort of couple of years. Why do we mention it? Well, if you're integrated with a number of carriers, particularly maybe for returns, if for argument's sake you were with DHL in a country, they would have a certain amount of parcel shops or locker boxes. But if you look at a business like Seven Senders, where we're integrated with multiple carriers in certain geographies, what you could have is, rather than say 3,000 access points, you could have 18,000 access points, because you'll also use Evries or the Royal Mails or DPDs. So again, I suppose the point there is maybe more so around returns and the ease of returns. Yes, there's a little bit more complexity in the background in order to make sure that people have the right labels to be able to go onto those boxes. But there's a number of our customers that have been able to do that and have been able to open up a number of different access points to their returns network. So reducing IT costs and how that sort of works. So what we often get is the business case is solid, but then when the logistics staff go to talk to their CTOs or go to talk to their IT department, what tends to happen is we've got a very full development stack. We haven't got any space to integrate anyone at the moment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how it could kind of work. So previously, what we would have seen is maybe a graph like this, where you'd have a shipper that would then integrate into a number of different carriers. So they might have 5, 6, 7 APIs going to different providers. They'd have a data provider within that, as well as a custom solution. So lots of different complexity and lots of different APIs coming out of their business. with someone like a Seven Senders, we sort of sit as a one API, so it's one API. I sort of mentioned at the top of the conversation around that it's sort of one account management team, one customer services team, one invoice. But similarly with the integration, it's just one integration into us, and then we do the integration. We've already got the integrations to the carriers and the custom solution and everything else. So that's pretty much it for me. Hopefully I've sort of helped you a little bit with international or certainly European delivery. If anyone's got any questions, I'm more than happy to take them now, or if not, then thanks very much for coming, and I appreciate you being here.